Have you ever felt like no matter how much you try, something keeps pulling you back? Like your mind is cluttered, your energy is drained, and your focus just isn't there. Most people think happiness comes from doing more, working harder, chasing bigger goals, adding more to their lives. But what if the real secret to peace and clarity isn't about what you do, but what you stop doing? Monks live with a deep sense of peace, but it's not because they have special powers. It's because they've mastered the art of letting go. They know that certain habits only bring stress, distraction, and suffering, and they refuse to engage in them. And today, we're breaking down 7 things monks would never do, and why eliminating these habits could bring more peace, focus, and purpose into your life. If this resonates with you so far, take a moment to give this video a thumbs up. It helps more people discover these powerful lessons. Stick with me until the end, and you might just realize that the things holding you back have nothing to do with what you lack, but everything to do with what you're holding on to. And if you enjoy powerful lessons like this, make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss the next one. And the first thing monks avoid. It might be something you're doing every day without realizing the damage it's causing. Most people believe that reacting quickly means being in control, but monks know the opposite is true. Real control comes from mastering patience. A disciple once approached a monk, frustration evident on his face. "Master, people test me every day. They say things that anger me. They push my limits. How can I stay calm when the world constantly provokes me?" The monk led him to a pond and handed him a stone. "Throw it in," he said. The disciple obeyed, and ripples spread across the water. "Now wait," the monk instructed. Slowly, the ripples faded, and the surface became still again. The monk smiled. "This is your mind. When you react instantly, you create waves of emotion. But if you wait, the water calms, and so does your mind." Monks train themselves to pause before responding to anything that triggers them. Here's how you can apply this to your own life. First, create space between emotion and reaction. When you feel anger or frustration rising, take a slow breath before speaking or acting. This brief pause gives your rational mind a chance to engage. Second, observe your emotions instead of being consumed by them. When something upsets you, try saying to yourself, "I notice I am feeling angry." This separates you from the emotion, giving you control over your response. Third, practice the art of silence. Not every situation requires an immediate answer. Sometimes, the most powerful response is no response at all. The disciple finally understood. It wasn't the world that needed to change. It was his ability to control his own reactions. How different would your life be if you mastered the ability to pause before reacting? Have you ever noticed how much of what we say throughout the day is completely unnecessary? People talk to fill silence, to impress others, or to complain about things beyond their control. But monks, they choose their words carefully, speaking only when it adds value or serves a meaningful purpose. A disciple once asked the monk, "Master, why do you speak so little?" The monk smiled and pointed to a nearby tree. "If this tree were to speak all day, would it grow any taller? Would its roots go any deeper?" The disciple thought for a moment before shaking his head. The monk continued, "The tree grows in silence, yet it provides shade, oxygen, and life without ever making a sound. It does not waste energy on noise. Should we not do the same?" Most people underestimate the power of silence. They assume that speaking more makes them appear wiser, when in reality, it often does the opposite. Monks understand that silence sharpens the mind and makes every word they speak more impactful. Here's how you can apply this second lesson. First, pause before you speak. Ask yourself, does this need to be said? If not, practice restraint. Second, embrace silence. Instead of filling every gap with words, allow moments of quiet to create space for deeper thoughts and presence. Third, when you do speak, make it count. Use your words to uplift, encourage, or share wisdom. Never to gossip, complain, or criticize needlessly. The disciple finally understood. Words were like arrows. Once released, they could never be taken back. Speaking less, but with intention, made each word more powerful. How much more peace would you have if you only spoke when it truly mattered? How often do you regret something you said or did in the heat of the moment? Most people let emotions dictate their actions, anger, frustration, or fear taking control before logic has a chance to step in. But monks, they master the art of responding, not reacting. A disciple once asked the monk, "Master, how do you stay calm even when people insult or offend you?" The monk handed him a cup and said, "Imagine this cup is filled with boiling water. If you spill it, it burns. But if you wait, the water cools, and you can drink it without harm." The disciple furrowed his brow. "What does that have to do with anger?" The monk smiled. "When emotions rise, they burn, just like boiling water. But if you give them time, they cool. A calm mind sees clearly, while a reactive mind only adds more fire." Most people respond immediately to things that upset them, often making situations worse. But monks understand that patience is the key to wisdom. Here's how you can apply this third lesson. First, practice the pause. When you feel anger or frustration rising, take a breath before responding. Even a few seconds can prevent regret. Second, detach from the emotion. Recognize that feelings are temporary, like waves in the ocean. Just because they arise doesn't mean you must act on them. Third, choose your response wisely. Instead of reacting with impulse, respond with intention. Ask yourself, what outcome do I really want from this situation? The disciple finally understood. He realized that his biggest mistakes happened when he acted without thinking. But by mastering his emotions, he could master his life. What would change in your life if you responded with wisdom instead of reacting with emotion? How often do you replay past mistakes in your mind, wishing you had done things differently? Most people carry the weight of regrets, holding on to things they cannot change. But monks, they understand that clinging to the past only robs the present. A disciple once came to the monk, looking troubled. "Master, I can't stop thinking about a mistake I made years ago. It haunts me, and I don't know how to move on." The monk pointed to a large rock. "Carry this with you," he said. The disciple picked it up and followed the monk along a path. After a while, his arms grew tired. "Master, this is heavy." The monk nodded. "Then why are you still carrying it?" The disciple's eyes widened as he realized the lesson. Most people live trapped in their past, reliving mistakes, failures, or painful memories. But monks know that the past is like that heavy rock. Carrying it only makes the journey harder. Here's how you can embrace this fourth lesson. First, accept what you cannot change. The past is already written, but the present is in your hands. Focus on what you can control now. Second, stop feeding the memories. Every time you replay a painful moment, you strengthen its grip on you. Instead, shift your focus to the lessons learned. Third, forgive yourself and others. Letting go doesn't mean forgetting. It means freeing yourself from the burden of resentment and regret. The disciple finally understood. The weight he had been carrying wasn't physical. It was emotional. And just like the rock, he had the choice to set it down. What unnecessary weight from your past are you still carrying? Here's the fifth habit a monk would never do. Seeking external validation. How often do you find yourself craving approval from others? Most people spend their lives trying to impress, fit in, or gain recognition, believing that happiness comes from being admired. But monks, they have freed themselves from the need for external validation, understanding that true fulfillment comes from within. A disciple once approached the monk frustrated. "Master, no matter how hard I try, people still criticize me. Some say I'm too ambitious. Others say I don't do enough. I feel like I'll never be good enough in their eyes." The monk handed him a feather and said, "Throw it into the wind." The disciple did as he was told, and the feather floated unpredictably, carried away in different directions. "This is the opinion of others," the monk said. "It changes with the wind. If you build your life around it, you will never be stable." Monks understand that when you seek approval from others, you hand over control of your happiness. Instead of chasing validation, they cultivate inner self-worth. So how can you apply this to your own life? First, recognize the illusion. External validation is never enough. No matter how much praise you receive, you will always need more. It's a cycle that never ends. Second, define success for yourself. Instead of living by society's expectations, ask yourself, What truly matters to me? What kind of life do I want to live? Third, practice self-acceptance. Your worth is not determined by how others see you. It's determined by how you see yourself. The more you embrace your true self, the less approval you will seek. The disciple finally understood. He had been chasing the wind, trying to hold on to something that was never meant to be controlled. But by letting go, he found peace within himself. How different would your life be if you no longer needed validation from anyone? Imagine climbing a mountain, but instead of focusing on your own path, you keep looking at the people climbing beside you. Some seem to be ahead, moving effortlessly. Others are behind, struggling with each step. But while you're watching them, you stop moving forward. Here's the sixth habit a monk would never do: comparing themselves to others. Most people live trapped in a cycle of comparison, measuring their progress, happiness, and success based on what others have achieved. But monks, they understand that comparison is like running a race with no finish line. It only leads to frustration and suffering. A disciple once approached the monk and said, "Master, I work hard, yet I feel like I'm always behind. Others seem to accomplish more, and it makes me doubt myself." The monk smiled and handed him 2 seeds, one from a bamboo tree and another from an oak tree. "Plant them," he instructed. The disciple followed his words, placing both seeds into the soil. "Now," the monk continued, "which one will grow faster?" The disciple thought for a moment. "The oak tree will sprout first, but the bamboo takes years before it even breaks through the ground." The monk nodded. Yet, when the bamboo finally grows, it shoots up rapidly, reaching great heights. Each seed follows its own timing. Comparing them would be pointless. Monks know that just like trees, people grow at different rates. Someone else's success doesn't mean your own journey is failing. So how can you stop the cycle of comparison? First, focus on your own growth. Instead of measuring yourself against others, ask, "Am I improving from who I was yesterday?" Second, embrace your unique timing. Just because something hasn't happened for you yet doesn't mean it never will. Stay patient with your process. Third, celebrate others without letting it diminish your own progress. Their achievements don't take away from yours. There is enough success for everyone. The disciple finally understood. He realized that his suffering came not from where he was, but from looking at others instead of trusting his own path. What would change in your life if you stopped looking sideways and simply focused on your own journey? Have you ever noticed that the more you chase happiness, the more it seems to slip away? The constant search, the endless wanting, the feeling that no matter what you achieve, something is still missing. Here's the 7th habit a monk would never do: seeking happiness in external things. Most people believe happiness comes from what they acquire: money, status, recognition. But monks, they understand that chasing external validation is like trying to catch the wind. The moment you think you have it, it moves just out of reach. A disciple once came to the monk, frustration written all over his face. "Master, I've achieved everything I wanted: success, wealth, admiration, but why do I still feel empty?" The monk handed him a bowl with a small hole at the bottom. "Fill this with water," he said. The disciple poured water into the bowl, but it kept leaking out. No matter how much he added, the bowl would not stay full. The monk explained, "This is your mind when it seeks happiness from the outside. No matter how much you pour in money, praise, success, it will never be enough if the source of fulfillment is flawed." Monks don't reject success or pleasure, but they don't rely on them for inner peace. True happiness, they know, comes from within. So how can you apply this final lesson? First, shift your focus from achieving happiness to cultivating contentment. Happiness is fleeting, but gratitude for what you already have brings lasting peace. Second, practice detachment. Enjoy what life offers, but don't let your joy depend on things you can lose. And for those who have stayed until the end, here's something to think about. What if everything you're chasing is already within you? If you found wisdom in this, take a moment to subscribe and hit the like button. It helps more people discover these powerful lessons. Thank you for being here, for listening, and for taking this step toward nurturing your growth. Until next time, stay present, stay open to change, and remember, sometimes The greatest journeys are the ones we take within ourselves. Third, invest in inner fulfillment. Strengthen your mind, your spirit, and your sense of purpose. These are the things no one can take away from you. The disciple finally understood. His emptiness had nothing to do with what he lacked, but everything to do with where he was looking.